When it comes to Disney's finances and legal battles and rather interesting Imagineering choices, sometimes Disney would rather us not think about their secretive past. But we here at DFP want to explore it anyways, because you deserve the truth. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog. All right, underneath all the rides and shows and treats and warm fuzzies we get from a fun Disney vacation rests a company built on rocky patches, ideas stopped short, and emergency game plans for when the parks get less magical for guests. Basically, there's a huge undercurrent of things going on that you don't even know about. So it's time for us to reveal those missing pieces of the puzzle by showing and telling some of Disney's biggest secrets. Buckle up, or at least get all cozy on the couch, because things are about to get interesting. First up, legal battles. What exactly happens when people get arrested in Disney? Well, let me just say that no, there is not a full-blown Disney jail, so to speak, though it's kind of funny to think about. Do you think Disney would make their jails themed too, like the baby care centers? I'm picturing the dungeons in Arendelle or Davy Jones's locker in Pirates of the Caribbean, so that would be cool. Now, though Disney World doesn't have a jail per se, that doesn't mean you're off the hook when it comes to criminal activities inside the parks. If a guest is caught violating a major policy like trespassing or selling counterfeit tickets, then they're taken to the park's security office. From there, Disney decides if the violation is severe enough to involve the Orange County Sheriff's Office to further handle the situation. Disneyland also has a similar setup that many guests still refer to as Disney Jail. According to the LA Times, disruptive guests at Disneyland are typically held in a security office, much like Disney World, until the Anaheim police show up. But what happens then? What does Disney do next? Well, Disney's got to make a decision depending on the severity of that altercation. Sometimes guests are only removed from the parks for a day. They're given a warning and allowed back into Disney at a later date. Other times, Disney may blacklist a guest, banning them for life. So if a guest is banned for life, Disney's going to keep that altercation on file for basically forever. So what justifies as being banned from the parks? Well, Disney's got quite the laundry list of rules that make sure they keep their parks safe, friendly, and inviting. Now, there are some things that will get you kicked out, like making rude gestures at people, attempting to cut in lines, or trying to smoke inside the parks. There are designated smoking areas directly outside the parks you can use instead, but as of 2019, Disney is smoke-free. You'll also be escorted off the premises for wearing full-on Disney character cosplay during non-Halloween party park days, because Disney doesn't need you to become the meet and greet character for that park. That's why Disney bounding as your favorite character, aka using Disney characters as inspiration for your everyday outfit without wearing a costume to imitate them, is so popular in the Disney community. Oh, and let's not forget spreading a loved one's ashes throughout the park. Yeah, the notion may seem sweet, but Disney really frowns upon that too. But the things that'll get you banned for life are a little more drastic and in some cases dire. Actions that will get you banned from the parks for life include sneaking into unauthorized areas, getting physically aggressive with a cast member, trying to smuggle in a weapon, which is why Disney has a security system installed at the front of each of its parks, public indecency, shoplifting, and repeated offenses for being kicked out of the parks in the first place. Disney does keep a record of guest altercations, so if they catch you trying to smoke in the parks, only to learn you've gotten caught doing that multiple times, you may have to hit the road, Jack, and don't come back. So what are some of the lawsuits Disney's had to face? Well, with a company as big as Disney, there are bound to be times where the company slips up and has to backtrack a bit to make up for rocky times and rocky decisions. So let's look over a couple of specific instances that Disney's had to tussle with just recently. First up, that Magic Key debacle. In 2021, Disneyland retired its old annual pass holder system in exchange for a new tiered system called Magic Key. Magic Key pass holders were given certain perks and benefits alongside direct access to the parks, but pass holders still have to go along with Disneyland's current theme park reservation system. But what many key holders came to realize was that getting park pass reservations was extremely difficult for them, which led many guests who'd spent a lot of money for frequent Disneyland park access out of luck. According to the Orange County Register, the lawsuit filed by Magic Key pass holder Janelle Nielsen stated that Disneyland deceived its most loyal fan base by artificially limiting theme park capacity and blocking pass holders with no blockout annual passes from making reservations. That's a direct quote. While key holders found making reservations near impossible for multiple weekends, weekdays, and holidays, daily admission guests were still able to book reservations on many of these same days with little to no trouble at all. Disney is now being issued a class action lawsuit for $5 $5 million on behalf of all Magic key holders. Though there's yet to be a resolution to this case, it seems the current top two-tier key passes, the Dream Key Pass and the Believe Key Pass, remain listed as sold out at this time. However, the more limited Enchant Key Pass, which allows guests to make reservations up to 90 days in advance and hold up to 4 park reservations at a time, subject to availability, is still available for purchase. Disney's got a giant notice posted at the top of their key holder page warning buyers to check the access calendar before making a key holder ticket purchase to make sure park pass reservations are available for the days they're wanting to visit, which is just a good rule of thumb for all Disney tickets in general. Always check those Disney calendars in both Disney World and Disneyland before you purchase any tickets to make sure the days and parks you're wanting to visit are still available for a reservation. All right, next lawsuit they've dealt with recently, stealing a ride design. Rise of the Resistance is Disney's most high-tech ride at Disneyland and Disney World, featuring state-of-the-art animatronics, screen technology, trackless ride systems, and overall storytelling immersion with a few surprise thrills here and there too. However, according to the Orlando Sentinel, Louis Alfieri, the chief creative officer of entertainment design company Raven Sun Creative and former Universal Creative, filed a lawsuit against the Walt Disney Company over a patent for a themed drop ride mechanism. So you know that surprise thrill I just mentioned? That's the design we're talking about here. The drop in Rise of the Resistance. Spoiler alert, there's a moment during Rise of the Resistance where riders enter an escape pod and drop out of the Star Destroyer during the ride's main climax. As it turns out, Alfieri's design for a vertically aligned amusement ride apparatus closely aligns with what's being used in Rise of the Resistance currently. According to the lawsuit, Raven Sun Creative submitted a proposal to Walt Disney Imagineering in 2014 for an Ultra Tower show experience that would use Alfieri's technology. Though Disney passed up the offer at the time, Alfieri states that what Disney's using currently in Rise of the Resistance directly pulls from the pitch he'd given them years ago. Raven Sun Creative notified Disney of, quote, patent infringement in March 2020, but Disney responded in November 2020 that they would continue to operate the ride without compensating the company for the alleged infringement. We're still waiting to hear more about the results of this one, but we'll make sure to keep you in the loop once we hear about the outcome. Okay, lawsuit number 3, plastic cheese. As much as I love my plastic cheese sauce, it received quite the negative press back in 2010. According to CBS News, a young boy received 2nd to 3rd degree burns from that cheese sauce, meaning the cheese would have had to reach temperatures up to 160 degrees Fahrenheit to cause the amount of damage it did to his upper lip. In 2015, Disney started to remove the plastic cheese from its quick service locations, though it was still served behind the counter a couple of places here and there. And we were sad. But in 2017, plastic cheese started to make its valiant return to the parks, and we were happy once more. That's right, I was sad for 2 solid years, apparently. Today, cheese sauce can be found at a decent warm temperature in several snack kiosks and counter service locations like Casey's Corner and Pecos Bill Tall Tale Inn and Cafe and Magic Kingdom. Pecos Bill has the white queso, by the way. And Cosmic Rays also has plastic cheese, and pretty much any stand that sells soft pretzels, but that's usually going to be that prepackaged plastic cheese. Now, lawsuits aside, Disney has also confronted the law themselves in hopes to skirt around it, proving successful in many cases. This is all thanks to Reedy Creek Improvement District. As the Reedy Creek website explains, the RCID is responsible for overseeing land use in the district, as well as providing essential services, regulating certain building codes, and operating all public roadways. They also have complete jurisdiction over the property owned by Disney in Florida. Basically, Reedy Creek is a key factor in how Disney can act, in a nutshell, as its own government. But how? How did Walt Disney manage to pull this off? Well, when Walt was looking for where he was going to put his next couple of theme parks, he knew he'd need somewhere that would allow him more freedom for the way he funded and operated his parks. This was especially important to him during those early stages of Epcot, when Walt was trying to create more of a utopian community. He didn't want to continually run into dead end after dead end and red tape after red tape with any proposed projects of his that wouldn't directly align with the government laws and restrictions. The Reedy Creek Improvement District was created by Florida in 1967 to help Walt start Epcot. This form of government is directly controlled by the Walt Disney Company and has complete control over services like power, water, sewage, road construction, maintenance, environmental testing and monitoring, and emergency services. So what things are made possible thanks to RCID? We're talking about those purple and blue road signs that go against the typical green, the Epcot building codes, which allow Disney to create an 18-story geosphere or spaceship Earth, the prettiest girl in school, while assuring a high degree of public safety, the creation of Cinderella Castle out of fiberglass, and Disney's unique trash system, which allows waste to be deposited at 17 collection points around the park, Every 15 minutes, it's drawn through 24-inch pneumatic tubes at speeds up to 60 miles an hour to a central compactor station at the back of Splash Mountain, and then trucked out to Waste Management. In 1968, when the OG version of Epcot was scrapped, a court case between the state and RCID granted Disney World the right to issue their own tax-exempt bonds to pay for further improvements, which is how Disney World was able to expand and build itself up from the get-go. Very sneaky, but effective. And even the Big Cheese himself has tangled with the law. Much like any created thing unleashed to the public, Mickey Mouse is subject to copyright law. When Mickey was first created, the copyright law allowed a maximum of 56 years of protection. Yep, do the math. Mickey's creeping up on his 94th birthday this year. So when Mickey got close to becoming part of the public domain after those 56 years had passed, Disney started lobbying to make some changes. The Copyright Act of 1976 was signed by Congress and helped Disney out for a while longer, extending already published corporate copyrights to 75 years. But that meant when 2003 rolled around, Mickey Mouse would become public domain, and Disney sure didn't want that. So the lobbying started up again and worked again. The Copyright Term Extension Act of 1998 became a law many refer to as the Mickey Mouse Protection Act, which extends those corporate copyrights to a whopping 95 years. But remember what I said earlier? Mickey Mouse is almost 94 years old, meaning his 95-year copyright's going to be up real soon. But getting that copyright extended for a third time might not be as straightforward as it was before. 2024 will pull a few of the early Mickey films and the original Mickey design into the public domain under copyright law. But Mickey's design has changed over the years, and trademark law likely complicates things. Guess we'll have to wait and see what happens. And that's only the tip of the iceberg, folks. To read more about times Disney had to fight the law and win, check out our DFB post on our website. I'll link it down in the description below in case you want to check it out after we wrap up here. Okay, let's move on to Imagineering. Was the Muppets area of MGM supposed to be a bigger deal? Disney's Hollywood Studios has a lot of top-tier locations featuring the latest technological advances for attractions and larger-than-life theming. And then there's Muppet Courtyard. Don't get the wrong idea here. We love the Muppets. Love them. They're cute and quirky and laugh-out-loud funny. Most of the time they have their ups and downs, but that's another topic entirely. And I love having them as part of Disney's Hollywood Studios. But when it comes to competing with areas like Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and Toy Story Land, this section tends to dull in comparison. Don't come at me, Muppet fans. I'm on your side. But was there a time when this section of the park could have competed with those shiny new areas? Honestly, yeah. Back when Disney's Hollywood Studios was still in development and going by the name MGM Studios, Disney was working on creating a Muppets Studio Land. In the concept's early stages, there were ideas thrown around like the Great Muppet Movie Ride that Muppets creator Jim Henson described as a backstage ride explaining how movies were shot, and all the information is wrong. Wow, I can't even begin to tell you how much I needed that in my life. And alas, I don't have it. There was also a planned Swedish chef cooking school and a pizza joint run by Gonzo. Sound kind of familiar? Kinda, at least the Muppets pizza joint part of it. And there is that Swedish chef cooking school advertisement in Muppet's Courtyard. The then Disney CEO, Michael Eisner, was in the process of flat out purchasing the Muppets brand from Jim Henson. But when Henson passed away in 1990, Henson's children decided to hold on to their father's legacy by not selling off the Muppet brand. But here's the thing, Muppet Vision 3D was already far into development, so with a little push from Frank Oz, who was the voice of so many beloved Muppet characters, including Miss Piggy, Fozzie Bear, Animal, and Sam Eagle, the Henson family agreed that Disney could go ahead and open Muppet Vision 3D. And that small sliver of the Muppets Courtyard we still hang around today. But didn't Disney continue to use Muppets characters for future projects? Eventually, yes they did. According to an article from Entertainment Weekly, the Henson family eventually sold Disney the rights to the Muppets 14 years after they turned down the initial offer. But this didn't lead to a complete Muppets takeover, nor did it lead to Muppets Studio Land. Rather, we've seen Disney sprinkle the characters throughout their parks here and there ever since, whether it be through the Regal Eagle Smokehouse in Epcot, a Muppets Christmas Carol float featured in the Merriest Nights holiday parties at Disneyland, or the now retired Great Moments in History show in Magic Kingdom. Oh, and let's never forget that Pizza Rizzo exists in Disney's Hollywood Studios too, the long-awaited dream of Gonzo's fulfilled by his rat-tastic friend Rizzo. Okay, another Imagineering secret that Disney won't tell you. Why was Superstar Limo the worst ride Disney's ever made? Well, it was supposed to be a ride that helped Disney California Adventure Park kick off on a high note when the park first opened back in 2001. But what it became was a ride that did not live up to that status. Superstar Limo was an opening day attraction for Disney California Adventure. It was a dark ride that made you the star of the show. At least that's what it was supposed to feel like. According to the old storyline, you were on your way to your big movie premiere in your hotshot purple limo Limo. On the way, you drive past familiar celebrities like Drew Carey, Whoopi Goldberg, and Jackie Chan. But this ride rubbed people the wrong way from the get-go. The backdrop felt and looked thrown together at the last minute, the celebrity appearances were basically unsettling bobblehead caricatures, and the story itself just didn't do much for people. Basically, it had a very slapped-together carnival ride vibe, which was not on par with Disney's usual quality content. So what happened? The staple attraction for this park was supposed to be huge and high speed, with a much more intense storyline, where you were still a big-time celeb, but instead of just moseying on through Tinseltown in your limo, you were trying to escape the pressing paparazzi. However, after Princess Diana's passing in 1997, which directly correlated to an attempt to also flee the paparazzi, Disney found it in poor taste to proceed with the original project. And because Disney California Adventure Park was already being founded on a tight budget, the ride that ended up being created instead was lackluster for lots of disappointed guests. According to an interview by Bruce Vaughn, chief creative executive at Walt Disney Imagineering, featured on the Imagineering story on Disney+, the team had more issues than just budgeting and running out of time. The entire team felt out of sync. Vaughn stated the culture wasn't really listening to each other. They would just go into these little pods of, this is my land or this is my attraction, and there's no sense of, hey, wait a minute, is this good enough? But there's no turning back, we just have to keep going. After its rough start with no improvement in sight, Superstar Limo closed less than a year from its original opening date. But that wasn't the end. In January 2006, the ride transformed into what we know it as today. Monsters, Inc., Mike and Sully to the rescue. Although there were a lot of characters created for this new dark ride, many of the Superstar Limo designs remained intact. The track remained the same, the limos were rethemed into taxi cabs that take you through Monstropolis instead of Tinseltown, and even some of the old celebrity caricatures were repurposed into CDA members lingering throughout. Honestly, they're a whole lot less unsettling now. As far as DCA's budget is concerned, they've definitely gotten past their initial slump. Now the park is bustling with some of the most popular Disney rides out there, including Radiator Springs Racers, Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout, and Web Slingers, A Spider-Man Adventure. For more history about rides and Disney that had to close and why, check out our YouTube video where we talk about lots of rides that are gone, but not necessarily forgotten. Okay, next Imagineering secret. Did Disney really want the Harry Potter universe? It's Leviosa, not Leviosa. Imagine a world where Disney purchases the rights to Harry Potter instead of Universal Studios. Where would they have built Hogwarts Castle? What would the rides have been like? Would butterbeer still be served the same delicious ways it's served now? Apparently that deal wasn't such a far-off reality at one point in time. Once upon a time, Disney had reached out to Harry Potter's author, J.K. Rowling, to purchase rights to the series. Makes sense, a series about a magic school in the most magical place on Earth, suiting. But the ideas Disney had for Rowling's created world were far too small a scale for the author's liking. Disney wanted to make 2 Hogwarts-themed attractions and add a restaurant in Fantasyland at the Magic Kingdom. But they didn't want to make the Boy Wizard's realm strictly Hogwarts. They still wanted to sell things like Coca-Cola products at the restaurants and other Disney movie merchandise in the ride gift shops. And Rowling didn't want her world to be a forced puzzle piece in an already developed area of a theme park. So how did Universal Studios win this war? Well, they were willing to give Rowling 2 entire areas of both their parks dedicated solely on immersing guests in the wizarding world of Harry Potter. All of you know that one of my biggest problems with Harry Potter World and Universal Studios is that I can't get a Diet Coke. You can't. They don't sell it. So first came the Hogsmeade portion of the park, which opened at Universal Studios Islands of Adventure in Florida in 2010, followed by Diagon Alley in Universal Studios Florida in 2014. To keep the magic alive and well, guests can access both parks via the Hogwarts Express, which is a very cool ride, as long as you purchase a ticket with park-to-park access. But Universal didn't stop there. The Hogsmeade area also expanded to Universal Studios Japan in 2014, Universal Studios Hollywood in 2016, and Universal Studios Beijing in 2021. Poor Disney. It seems Universal won this time around, but honestly it worked out better that way. Universal Studios was able to take the series and run with it, setting a whole new standard for immersive experiences in theme parks. Not too long after the Wizarding World's successful debut, Disney announced their Star Wars Galaxy's Edge expansion for both Disneyland and Hollywood Studios during the 2015 D23 Expo. Then, in their 2019 D23 Expo, they announced the addition of Avengers Campus for Disney California Adventure. And yeah, I'd say Disney's had some pretty successful moments with both franchises, but are they Harry Potter level? Well, that's for you to talk about in the comments. Both Star Wars Galaxy's Edge and Avengers Campus are now open with immersion levels that might not be as expansive as to entire sections of theme park like the Wizarding World has over in Orlando, but are nonetheless still hefty and keep the suspension of disbelief alive and well. And Galaxy's Edge has stepped up their game with the addition of the Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser, which is a 3-day, 2-night interactive experience that drops you directly into a Star Wars storyline and allows you to make decisions on how your adventure is going to play out while still being directly attached to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. It's also very, very expensive. You can watch my video with all my thoughts on that next. Okay, time to talk finances. How many times has Disney been on the verge of bankruptcy? Judging by the high crowd levels and millions of dollars funneled into the Disney company on the daily, you'd assume Disney's always been sitting pretty on the wealth department. But the main brain behind the whole operation, Walt Disney himself, had his fair share of humble beginnings and failures before the parks took off the way they did. Walt's 4 crucial lows are as follows. According to the D23 website, Walt Disney's first tango with bankruptcy happened in 1922 after his first film studio, Laugh-O-Gram Films, based in Kansas City, Missouri, went under when the distributor defaulted on his payments. The second time Walt Disney's plans led him to serious financial troubles was in 1937 before the release of his first animated film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. According to the Washington Post, Snow White threatened to bankrupt Disney when the costs escalated from an estimated $500,000 in 1934, when the project was launched, to $1.5 million upon its completion shortly before Christmas of 1937. Time for Disney's Strike 3, which just so happens to lead up to a company-wide strike in 1941. After a few back-to-back movie flops with Fantasia and Pinocchio, Disney fell into a state of financial difficulties leading up to World War II. Business Insider wrote about how Disney animator Art Babbitt resigned from his post as president of the Disney Company Union to head the Screen Cartoonists Guild and lead the artists on a strike in May 1941, after the Walt Disney Company failed to follow through with promised pay increases. There were also many layoffs rumored for many areas around the company. After Walt Disney's jadedness following the Disney animators' strike, he started to build a completely new company called Walter Elias Disney Enterprises, or WED Enterprises, which would lead to the development of Disneyland. In an article, Walt Disney borrowed $50,000, the limit of my personal borrowing ability, from his bank against the security of his life insurance policy. Walt was well aware that if Disneyland turned out to be one big failure, he'd once again be on the cusp of bankruptcy. So he sold his newly acquired second home and put his remaining home into his wife Lillian Disney's name. So guess it's a good thing people liked Disneyland, but it was definitely a rocky start. I think it's safe to say the Disney company's been through a lot, from early bankruptcies to losing out on one of the most profitable theme park franchises to creating what might be the worst ride to ever exist. Sorry, not sorry, Superstar Limo. Still, they're the top entertainment company in the world, with several theme parks owning the Best in the World title. So even with those setbacks, they're doing all right. Is that because they have a top-notch legal team that sweeps their setbacks under the rug until some YouTube channel decides to make a video uncovering those secrets? Maybe, but this is also a company that's founded on the idea of brushing yourself off and trying again. So if you take something more from this video beyond the interesting stories you've probably never heard about Disney, know that you too are more than your setbacks, and maybe don't serve melted cheese at an unsafely high temperature at your next potluck. So thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.